Good evening and welcome. I'm Bob Pace, your host. And tonight we're here to talk about CPS. Stop taking our children. I want to welcome everybody. Many of you are going through similar issues with CPS that I went through. And I know it's hard and difficult to talk about it. And I don't know what state your case is in, but I hope that you can get something from this that will help you. Now, there's several ways we can interact with this podcast. Normally, I have a guest, but tonight the guest canceled, so that means I can take a guest from people calling in, which is great. This podcast is produced by Vincent Davis Associates. I want to thank Mr. Davis for this podcast. Also, if you need help, you can call him at 888-888-6582, and he will help you. One of the first ways you can with this podcast is that you can do comments, and that's where people write things. All I ask is your name and the city and state. And if you're from a country, your city and country. And you're probably saying, why country? Well, I've had people from Canada, Australia, United Kingdom, Ghana, and Mexico text in a CPS question. CPS is worldwide. It's a worldwide issue. Protecting our children is so much important because there's a definitely child trafficking out there going on. Child trafficking, where children are used in as work slaves and as sex workers. And so, with that being said, we got to be really careful of our children, and we need to know where our children are at. There's too many incidents of children running about, and 1 in every 20 children is being investigated. That's how bad the CPS, would not say how bad, but how bad neglect or abuse has gotten. Now, when you write in a comment, all I need is really your question and what I can help you with. I'm not an attorney. I'm a loving father, husband, and I have a family. And I'm college educated, and I've worked in many fields. So I have a big heart. I like to help you and help you work through your questions and your concerns. Now, besides writing in comments, what you can do is maybe you want to be a guest on the show at another time. Maybe now is not a good time to talk. Well, all you have to do is write into my show producer, Grace, who does a lot of hard work on the show, and email her. It's grace@vincentwdavis.com. That's grace@vincentdavis.com. And she'll put you on one of my 14 shows. I'm on morning or evening, 7 days a week at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time for an hour, or 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time PM an hour. Now, there's a couple exceptions this week. Well, every Sunday I start about 10:30 because there's another podcast just before that, so they need some time between the podcasts. Also, this Saturday, I'll be starting at 8 o'clock instead of a normal time at 10 o'clock. So that's 8 o'clock this Saturday. So just tell Grace you want to be on the Monday show, the evening show, or the morning show, and Saturday, Thursday, whatever day you want to pick. But I love to have you as my guest, and you can talk to us like I'm talking. If you don't want your picture shown, you have that option. You don't have to show your picture. Now, if you'd like to talk right now, I would love to have you talk. All you do is call in 626-698-0990. That's 626-698-0990. And you can start talking and be my guest and help other people and help yourself maybe get through those questions that you have. I love to hear about your case, how it got started, the allegations, and so forth. Also, I'd like to tell you about rule number 1. And I do have 3 rules that I try to tell everybody every show. The first rule is very, very important because you're dealing with an agency that's very complex. They're not friendly. They really don't care about you as parents. They do traffic our children. They do alienate our children from our parents. There's lots of things that CPS think they have the power that they can do, and they don't. They exercise their power. And the whole basis why CPS is doing it is for money. It's $1 billion business. I know firsthand. I know that they are getting money every month for children. And that money is excessive amount that should be used to raise or help out a child. And that's supporting their bonuses they get, all the fancy things they get, and so forth. It's really sad, but that's what it is. And as I say, rule number 1 is get an attorney. You need someone that can go through all the ins and outs of the agency. You know the story of Alice in Wonderland. She falls in a rabbit hole and she can't get her way out, and she can't find where she wants to go because it's so full of doors that open nowhere. And she stumbles all kinds of different places. She has a miserable time trying to find. And that's what CPS is. CPS is like your Alice in Wonderland. You know, they're not friendly. They're not transparent. They don't have the caseworkers that I know and the ones I've talked to, because I've been talking to over 100 people. They don't have a college education. They haven't taken social work classes. They don't even have a certificate or license. And they're also practicing medicine. They're not doctors, but they give prescriptions for mental health issues. They also think they're experts for mental health issues. And being so, they have to be a clinical psychiatrist, but they're not that. So I'm trying to tell you, beware, because they will come to get you. So that's why I suggest that you get a list of 10 family attorneys. 10 attorneys that do family law. And one of my first attorneys I'll help you with, his name is Mr. Vincent W. Davis. He's a family law attorney. He has many years' experience fighting CPS and has gotten the kids back to the parents. He's also fought CPS in civil lawsuits, and he is a trial attorney. So he's on your list of 10, because after you get 10, you want to call 5 of them and narrow down which one has the most experience with CPS. And he should be one of your 5 people. And he goes all over the states. He goes Northern California. He practices mainly in Southern California, but he'll go to Northern California and he'll go to the states. A couple of weeks goes in Oklahoma. So he does go around. And right now, he's offering a consultation for 30 minutes for $49.99. That's a consultation for $49.99. That includes the 30 minutes there. Also, when you call in, make sure you tell them that Bob Pace sent you. And then when you talk to Mr. Davis, say that Bob Pace sent you. So that's my rule number 1. It's really important there, because they will help you go through the agency, which is like a giant spider spinning webs and trapping you in and take you in there. And they're the only agency I know that's allowed to do child trafficking. And you're probably wondering, what do you mean child trafficking? Well, they come to your home, and they come in your home without your permission, or you give them permission, but they're not supposed to come in there if you say no, but they still do. And they'll make allegations, and suddenly these allegations will say the children are in imminent danger and we must take them. Almost every case I hear from people, they sometimes come with the police to do intimidations. The police are very intimidating. They have their combat gear, their combat boots, and they're not your friend. And they can be dangerous, because when they carry loaded firearms, things can happen. So I'm telling you, you need to know, and I'll tell you about now my rule number 3, but let me go back to rule number 1. So After the consultation, you got to think about, do I want Vincent Davis? You're probably saying, well, where am I going to get the money? Well, if you have a home like I did, I sold my home and I got the money to hire him. And he took a lot of money. I know he did. And I got 2 of my 3 children back. Maybe I would have got them back sooner if I hired right away, but I waited for a year and a half thinking I could fight the agency. I went to the top dog in Southern California, and he had a Taj Mahal of a building. It was green like the Emerald Building in The Wizard of Oz. And he had so much gold around his neck, he was going to fall over. And so, I tried to talk to him, and went in one ear, went out the other. Also, his cronies, his assistants, his managers, supervisors, they're a waste of time. They don't care. And the harder you press them, the harder you want your civil rights. You see, in all criminal matters, you have your civil rights protection. But in CPS, your civil rights and your constitutional rights seem not to matter because they take the law in their own hands. There's no one stopping them. There's no one supervising them. There was an audit done in Georgia on one CPS county, and they have $89,000 unaccounted for. Where did that money go? There's so many issues happening with CPS lately. They are taking children so bad. I mean, 1 in every 20 child is being investigated. That's a lot of children. Just think about it. You see 20 children and your 21st child is being investigated because there's an allegation. Now, allegations are grouped by 2 kinds of individuals, lay people and professionals. And lay people could be your family, relatives, friends, people that are not professional, meaning they're not working around children. So they're kind of bad because there's a lot of false allegations being spread out there because they want to family members want to steal your child. Mine was too. There's no imminent danger for my children to be taken from us, but they took them. And the sad part is when they took them, they put them in a shelter that was a concrete block, and the play yard was right next to the juvenile prison. And then they had a beehive where they get stung. Is that protecting our children? It was overcrowded. They had lousy food. It was dirty. And their idea of education was reading a book to them. So for a couple days, they were in that prison. And while we were doing our safety plan meeting. Now, what that was is you meet with the social workers and you give them a list of family members your children could stay with until supposedly the imminent danger that you're exhibiting towards your children can be corrected. There's a part there, it says, CPS was started about 1853, right before the Civil War. And it's been going on ever since. It's a great idea. It's financed well, but there's been so much abuse of power over the years. There's cases and cases of people being prosecuted because they abuse the money. And it's the same thing that's happening to today. It's the same thing that's happening to today. They don't need to put them in foster care. And foster care has been corrupt. In fact, our daughter was stolen by foster care. And our social worker, as a revenge, because she lost when she said on the stand that she lied. I mean, well, she didn't say she lied, but we proved to her that she was lying. And we proved that she was lying and caught her with her lie. And she told us, you're never going to see your daughter again. And she did the revenge. She told her daughter, divorce your parents. And at 12, she listened. And also, it's fear. Social workers put fear in you, put fear in parents, put fear in children. That's the intimidation factor. And they said, seal your birth certificate and change your name. And that's what our daughter did. And at age 12, she wasn't face to face of us in court, but she was asked, are you sure you want to divorce not only your parents, but your grandparents and your brothers and sisters and all your relatives? And I never got to hear her. I don't know if she ever did or not. I don't know who was pulling her strings. She's probably like a puppet. And the caseworkers put ideas in her head. And I know my in-laws probably did the same thing with her. My wife's family was really bad towards our daughter. Our daughter, I mean, It was so bad that her mother, my wife's mother, said that she couldn't be a mother. That's how bad she felt about us as family. And from day one, I've always treated my wife as family, and I treated their family as family, but they never liked us. In fact, they didn't show up at the wedding. That's how much they liked it. And her sister, who lives nearby, couldn't even make it to the wedding. We made it to her wedding. We made it to other sisters' wedding. We made numerous trips out to where the grandparents are living. We encouraged our children to meet and see her. And that was a big mistake because they would use our children to pry. They still today want to know what our children are doing. And I don't know why 14 years later they still want to do that. But all I know is that our older kids are really distant from us as parents, which is sad. And we lost our daughter, which is really sad. And it hurts every special occasion because for 12 years, we took care of our daughter. She had a lovely home. She had wonderful things, and she did well in school. And sadly, all that's now gone. And now she's 21. I hope and pray that she's okay and that someday that she'll come and see us. Because, I see pictures of her today at 21, and she's really pretty. But I also worry about her because I worry about her getting into trouble. And I've already seen her on the social network, on one of the social networks, doing some crazy things. So I don't know. I don't know. I had an interesting show this morning. A guy named Bill from New Jersey told me about some other things that I didn't think about with CPS. Now, I've had people on here that are in the military and they have CPS in the military, and they're just as bad as in the public. CPS is corrupt. They also have CPS at the hospitals. I don't know if you notice that. When you go in, there's always a CPS worker who wants information and so forth. And now I've been reading something about trafficking in hospitals by doctors saying things that aren't true and telling social workers taking the children because a parent brought in a children and they needed help, and maybe the method wasn't something the parent wanted. They want to try alternative method, and the doctor says, no, you can't do that. And if you do, then we'll get social workers involved and steal your children. So there's trafficking in the medical hospitals, which I just realized today. Now, I've been doing this for a long time, and so I'm really researching it. There's a small town in West Virginia that's full of incest, adult entertainment, and prostitution. And the mother there was really a sad state of affair because she was taken as a small child, was abused in foster care. A lot of you people that come into the show are saying you've been in foster care before. And what foster care does, or not foster care, but what CPS does, they look at your profile. They check who you are. They already know who you are when they want to go after you. And they look for people that have lost a job, that are not working, don't have income, going through hard times. Maybe their relationship with their partner's bad. All these things they look for. They want to take advantage of them. And a lot of people don't have college educations. A lot of people don't know what to do, and I don't blame you. It's really hard out there. It's so hard. You cry yourself, at night, wondering what to do because you love your children. Children need to be with their biological mom and dad, no matter what the case is. If you're divorcing, then divorce. But don't deny the father, the mother from the child. Do not deny them. A child needs a mother and father. And it's been proven in studies that they've shown that biological parents are the best parents. Excuse me 1 second here. Take a drink. Mhm. Okay. Sometimes I get talking, I get thirsty, and so forth. Now let me go over rule number 2, and it's a real simple one. It's a clerical one, but it's really important. Is that you should have a notebook to track everything that you're doing, all the incidents, all the CPS matters should be in one place in a notebook, and start a blank notebook. And on your first line, put the date and time of the incident. Then after the date and time, put the people involved, 2 social workers, 1 policeman, or whatever, their names or whatever you have. Then the next line should be the incident, what the incident about. They went and took your child, or they came to your home. So you write the incident. The third line should be the conclusion. What happened in the end? How was the incident concluded? Now, you may not know the conclusion. It may be 6 months, 4 months, whatever it is. But you come back and write in later, but leave yourself space. Then skip a couple lines and start your next incident, and then skip a couple lines, start your next incident. The idea is that you're going to find everything by date and time, and you can use highlighters to highlight certain things that are important to come back and look at later. You'll love this book when it's like 3 years because your case may go on. Typically, they tell you that it's supposed to be settled in 48 days. 48 days. I don't know where they get the 48 days from, but I've read somewhere where typically they say it's 48 days. Um, so anyway, you got this notebook going, and you can refer to it later on. That's what's really important. I did not do that. I wish I did, because 6 months, a year from now, you're not going to remember. And this case may go. Mine went 3 years. Somebody on here said they were going for 21 years. I mean, it's hard to believe the case be stretched, but they want to make a lot of money. And if it's 21 years, the child will be too old to collecting more money. So maybe it's 18 years is the max that the cases can go. Because once they have a case, it's open, they'll start charging money. And they're not ashamed to admit it. My social worker said, "Oh, I got a new Gucci purse, or I got my new eyelashes, or my new makeup, or my new clothes, or my BMW car with her bonuses." See, they give them bonuses to keep the children, especially if they get them into foster care, because if they can get adopted, they'll get the money for that child until they turn 18. So I'm telling you that. Um, you have to be careful. Shelters, group homes, and foster care is not where kids belong. Shelters are very sterile, not very safe. Group homes are just as bad because the people running them don't know how to take care of children. And on top of that, the foster care system is bad because they do abuse children. So many of you out there are foster care kids and grown up as adults and tell me that you've been abused as a foster child. And that goes on all the time. There's a lot of your parents that have special needs children, and you're willing to take them. I mean, I listened to one lady that she was taking care of her older brother who was disabled, had special needs. She had a son that needed special needs, and she was trying to get her daughter back. And it's really funny because CPS doesn't know how to do special needs. In fact, they dumped the child back on the mother because they couldn't take care of him. So I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of squirrely things that happen in CPS. Do not trust them. Do not believe what they're saying. They're not your friend. They're not your ally. They'll alienate your children. They'll make your children not want to go back to you. They'll say crazy things that are not true. They do lie. They're very deceiving. And the police that support them is the same way too. The police are the same way too. So that was rule number 2 about keeping your notes. Now, rule number 3 that I mentioned earlier is very important because it involves your home and your children. You'll find that your home is your castle, and you don't have to let anybody have permission to enter your home if you don't want them to. The only time they can come into a home is if there's imminent danger taking place, like a shooting going on, a child being smashed against the wall, something that puts the children in danger. But they have to have a warrant to do a search. It's a legalized document that a judge signs that the CPS will get in court to issue it because they feel the child's in danger. And the reason why you don't want them in your home is because there may be things in your home that will get you further into trouble because they're not going to be your friend. And furthermore, which you should always do when you're approached by a social worker or police about this child situation, is you say, I need to talk to my attorney first. I'll get back to you. Take the name and number and get back to him. Say it firmly but respectful. Say, no, I have an attorney. I'll get back to you. Can I please have your name and number? So I'm trying to tell you that. That will resolve of your children being taken. Do not let them take them from your home, your children, unless they have a warrant. That also goes for the hospital. Too many social workers will come into the hospital room and take the children. No, they can't. They need a warrant, and they need to be waiting in the lobby. Social workers do not belong in birthing rooms. That's a no-no. And if I'm having a child, which, males don't have children, I would say right away, doctor, could you please get this person out of the room? They're not a family member. Only family members are supposed to be in there, and they have to have permission. They have a lobby. Everybody waits in the lobby, and they can too. I don't care if they work there or not. You don't have to talk to them. You don't have to see them. It's for your protection. It's for your rights, because you don't know what you got yourself into. That's why you need rule number 1. You need that attorney. Defender that's given to you in your court case, they really are not a family law attorney. They're beginning attorneys. They're given to you at the last minute. You maybe have 5 minutes before your case is talked about in court. And they're wrong. They're not going to protect you. They're going to try to settle the easiest way. They're friends of the judge. They're friends of the social workers. They're worthless. And I'm sorry to say that to me, but they're worthless. It's only so the government can get away when your Constitution says in legal matters, you're entitled to an attorney. If you can't afford one, they'll appoint you one. Well, the problem is the ones that they appoint are so badly off, you don't want them. They're so badly off. And I had one guy that said he had to replace his public defender 31 times because the public defender still wouldn't side with him or, try to support him to get out there. So, you can do that. You can do that. You can ask for another attorney. One thing you have to know, in dependency court, the clerk there has all your paperwork. You can demand copies. And if you're low income, they'll make the copies free to you. So I'm telling you that you have to look at some of these things because they're going to end up trying to take your children right away. Now, with that being said, again, I'd like to thank Mr. Davis for producing this podcast. And if you need help, please call him. It's 888-888-6582. And that's Mr. Davis, and he will help you. Again, I want to thank to all my listeners out there. I thank you for your emojis, your comments, your smiley faces, your hearts, your thumbs up. That's great. And I know it's so hard for you going through this and hear this because you may be for the first time hearing how awful CPS, but I think most of you have found out how awful they are, how they trick you into doing all kinds of things. Now, there's some new comments that I've been researching. Today, I learned about something called medical kidnapping. And I want you parents to pay attention to this idea of medical kidnapping. Now, as parents, you do what's right for your kids. That includes seeking medical attention when you suspect something's wrong. Nothing can stop your heart faster than waking up to a sick child in the middle of the night and racing to the emergency room. Well, almost nothing. Imagine that once through those hospital doors, your child may not be free to leave with you. Medical kidnapping is a very real, very terrifying term that describes a scenario where the state steps in to take over child custody when doctors and parents disagree over the medical care your child should be receive. The state then places your son or daughter into foster care when you may not even be granted visitation rights. Now, you're probably wondering what can trigger medical kidnapping. Despite the courts leaning on the side of the parents maintaining custody, control over raising and caring for the children, medical facilities may not. Just by trying to do what you believe is your child's best interest, you may be dropping yourself and your child into a legal minefield that you can't maneuver without proper legal help. So there I go, that attorney rule number 1. Here are some actions that can lead to your child being held against you. Will include disagreements with the doctor over the diagnostic or proper treatment plan, the recommendation of a risky surgery, prescribing a drug with dangerous or unknown side effects, failing to address your questions or concerns, and total disregarding your suggestions for alternative procedures or treatments. If a doctor feels strong enough, he or she may have you escorted out by the police while continuing to treat your child without your consent. Now, I don't know if that's at every hospital or what. This is something new today that was shown to me. But the Department of Social Services will move in quickly to attain legal custody over your child, giving the department the authority to make medical decisions for your son or daughter. This can be critically dangerous if your child was previously diagnosed with a rare condition that the hospital is choosing to discount. Now, this word here really got me moved. It says terrorizing children in the name of health care. Pulling sick children away from their parents under the guise of abuse and neglect seems like cruel punishment, but often children who end up in the foster care because victims of real physical abuse. These children end up lying with strangers when they are in the most vulnerable, making it unlikely they'll be able to fight back. In other cases, the psychological trauma inflicted can be worse than the illness they're fighting. A 13-year-old daughter fighting liver cancer was removed from the mother's care when that mother sought alternative treatment because her daughter wasn't tolerating the chemotherapy. That's one example. Another example, police tracked down parents of a toddler after putting out a missing and endangered child bulletin. He was removed from their custody and then transferred for medical treatment without the consent of the parents. While these cases are sometimes associated with communities that don't believe in traditional medicine, they can happen to any family when there's a conflict between opinions and healthcare of their children. So all I'm telling you this is you got to be really careful with taking your children to hospitals and doctors and stuff. It's scary out there. It really is. Hi, Ariel Thomas. I need help uh, and advice on what I should do. May I call you um, a question? Yes. My phone number is there. You can call me at 626-698-0990. What city and state are you calling from, Ariel? But go ahead and call me. My phone is open, and I'd love to hear from you on the show, and maybe you can answer the question. Anybody else that wants to call in, I'm open to any of your questions, and you can talk about your case. It goes a lot quicker than comments does because I can concentrate on you and listen to what you have to say. Anyway, Errol Thomas, the phone number is 626-698-0990. That's 626-09, excuse me, 626-698-0990. That's my office phone, and it's live during the podcast. It's live only during the podcast. It goes off at 8 o'clock tonight and won't come back on until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Excuse me, goes on at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning and goes off at 11 o'clock. So it's only on during my show times. Anyway, while Ariel's getting himself, she or he, I don't know if it's a he or she, but I don't even know what city or state they're from, but be like that they hear that. So I was just talking about medical, having a medical problem and how bad it could be. You could lose your children that way. You got to be really careful about what you say to them and just want to say nothing. You're not required to say anything. And it's really important because I know how much you love your children and you hate to just go through all this. Well, Ariel's getting ready. I'll find another article. I was just looking at this last Saturday when this crazy person went on a shooting rampage and was firing, but the problem being the people around were children. My question is, what are children doing out at 11:30 at night on Saturday night? The ages were 12, 13, 14, 16. There's some reports of a 17-year-old, but that's the wrong report is corrected. But anyway, here are these children out now. Used to be an old ad. Do you know where your children are at? Somehow we forgot about our children right now. We let them roam the streets and we give them no discipline. There's no reason why they have to be out there at 11:30 at night unless they're looking for trouble. Because what goes on late at night is people have been drinking and partying and bad things will happen. In this case, guns were used to settle the differences. Norm that if somebody has a disagreement, they'll use a gun. And that could be a child, adult, anybody. And the guns of choice are really been awful because they're weapons of mass destruction. I mean, they're automatic weapons. I mean, no one needs automatic weapon to settle something. I mean, that's really, really sad. But anyway, this incident happened in Indiana shopping center. Lucky the children looks like they're all surviving. But still, you as parents got to be responsible for your kids and know where they're at. There's no need for them to go out late at night. And they need to do something like fun things that teenagers used to do or young children used to do. They're going to lose all that when they become a teenager. They're trying to do adult things too soon. It's important for them to be a child or a teenager. They don't need to be growing up as an adult because they'll get in trouble. So that was interesting too this last weekend. And then the weekend before that, during the weekday, Nickelodeon is being investigated for abuse with the children on their TV shows. Some of it's sexual abuse. And one of my shows last night, I think it was, there was a lady from West Virginia that was talking about incest, adult entertainment, and prostitution. And he says it's rampant. And she says there's a mafia that protects it. And in her case, West Virginia was terrible. She was a foster care mother, but she was abused as a small child. She's grown up, has children of her own, and now is dealing with CPS. So it has all this past history on her. And it's sad because, incest, pedophilia, and adult entertainment, that's not for children. That's why they call it adult entertainment. Pedophilia is wrong. Incest with mothers and fathers and sons and mothers and sisters, whatever the combination, is really wrong. It's not healthy, and somewhere someone's gone wrong there, thinking it is. But West Virginia has a bad case of that, and this mother was in bad, bad, bad shape. And it's really hard because the children, when there's incest, the children, are harmed, but sometimes they don't want to say anything against their parents. And the father or the mother is going to deny it because they're trying to protect themselves. So it's a hard area to be involved in. And it's wrong. It is wrong. Now, one thing that was brought to me was called Interstate Compact on the Placement of Children. That is ICPC. ICPC. It's where a child is being taken out of state to another state, and there's supposed to be protection for that child leaving the state to the other state, and how the child's supposed to be placed. And right now, there's an article in Atlanta, Georgia, about children being taken out of Georgia and put into Texas to handle mental health issues. And parents don't want their children. You don't need to. And this ICPC, I don't know if it really protects the children or not. They say they're supposed to. There's supposed to be agreements among all the 50 states and territories, including Puerto Rico, Guam, Virgin Islands. There's supposed to be some type of agreement where they're protected. There's a placement process and everything. So people were talking about that. Then someone was talking to me the other day called a fact-finding appeal. Now, a fact-finding appeal is that anything can be appealed on. If you have a case that didn't go your way, you can make an appeal. Now, appeal is not to retry the facts or the allegations. Appeal is something that maybe you were denied your constitutional rights or your civil rights in a matter, something wrong with the way the judge made the decision on something without taking a fact for something there. So you want to do what's called a fact finding, and you want to appeal on that. And that if there's a conflict in the evidence and a reasonable fact finder could have resolved the conflict either way, the appellate court will not overturn the court trial jury decisions there. I've talked about 1853, about the evolution of child protection services. It was first called the Children's Aid Society, and that's where they had children living in tents. And there's pictures of them in the old days where they made gardens and they practiced being farmers and stuff. What it was is they didn't have parents, and they were taken care of by the state with donations. And the donations were great, but they weren't used right. There's people within the aid society that took off the money. They were trying to take, trade schools with the children, but they had camps of children. It was founded in New York, and it was founded by Charlie Long Brace. He had over a budget of over 100 million, 45 citywide sites, and over 1,200 full-time employees. And it was one of the oldest, it still is one of the oldest of nonprofit organizations. And they provided comprehensive service for adoption and foster care, after school, and mental health and dental health. They really did try to help with the children, but the sad part, they're still being abused and taken advantage of. I'd like to thank Mr. Davis again for producing this podcast. If you need help, you just call in to 888-888-6582. Now, Ariel Thomas, I still haven't heard from you. You said you wanted to call in about the question, but I'd love to hear from you. My number is 626-598-698. I'm sorry, 0990. That's 626-698-0990. So please call me right now. It's my work phone, and I will answer it. And any of you that want to call in, it'd be perfectly welcome too. I'd love to hear from you. Right now, we're talking about different topics. We're kind of bouncing around a little bit. There's this article that was told me about Kids South State for behavioral health needs. And what it was is that there's a person named Danielle who's been on my show, has been engaging with virtual visits with her son, Alex. Although Alex is 18, the state of Georgia considers him a dependent child with high needs. You see, he's a special needs child. And so even though he's over the age of 18, he still needs, his mother still wants to help him. Alex has severe autism, but being away from family complicates his behavior even more, according to his mom. Back in 2011, when Danielle served prison time for felony forgery, she gave guardianship of her special needs son to his maternal grandmother. But when she died in 2022, the Georgia Department of Human Services Division of Family and Children's Services, DFCS, ultimately decided Alex needed to be placed in a residential facility for behavioral health. The problem, the closest one was 100 miles away near Houston, Texas. That was a big problem. And Danelle's been on her show talking about her son, Alex. Child welfare advocates have sounded the alarm on stories similar to Alex. A joint committee in the state legislature began focusing on the issue of high needs cases last year. They alleged the state's own residential facilities can make more profit when they accept more out-of-state patients, meaning kids coming to Georgia for help. So what's happening is they're able to make more money. And that results in fewer residential facility options for children who already are state residents. As a result, that means local children may have to leave Georgia for help. Child welfare workers also citing a lack of statewide specialized training and staff shortages. See, that's, they're only doing it for money. They're not doing it to help out Alex. Experts also blame the state's own insurance company, AMA Group, for failing to provide costly claims in January 2023 joint committee meeting at the state capitol. AMA Group denied the allegations and said it is committed to serving Georgians. However, Brian Peterson, who leads the health law and policy team for the Georgia Department of Human Services told lawmakers, I have personally reviewed and witnessed these extreme medical fragile children being routine and systematically denied medical necessary treatment regardless of the child or youth medical circumstances. They will all receive the exact same formulaic denial notice, he says. This dilemma feels devastating for families like Danelle's, who at least wants to have Alex back home. They're supposed to provide services and to help prevent the placement, she said. They fail to do that. You know, this is so sad. There's a lot of video on that, but you should look it up. Georgia Kids South State for Behavioral Health Needs. That is really sad. And she's been on our show. Danelle has been on our show numerous times. And I'm telling you that it's really, 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 really hard. It really is. I feel all of you that are going through this. CPS is not friendly. It's not fair. But you got to keep on your toes. You got to have an attorney to fight for your kids, and you don't want to give up. And you got to protect your civil and constitutional rights. I know all the parents are on this show here care about their children so much. They still be good parents. Maybe there's a little glitch in a simple parenting program or something else could help them correct the behavior and be a better parent. That's called family reunification. It's something that CPS doesn't believe in. Family reunification. Now, something was mentioned about nuke pro trunc. New pro trunc is a Latin expression which means now for then. In general, our court ruling new pro trunc applies retroactively to the correct and earlier ruling. So if you want to know what that is, I put that up there for you to look at. You know, there was a passage on the internet that says, does Child Protection Services make money for every child they put in a foster care system? 2 years ago, my children were taken out of bed, out of my arms. The reason for them being taken was because they were with their mother for 2 hours. The mother did everything they asked of, and they still would not release the children. Their answer was, it's been too long. They've had no legit reason for taking my children. It seems like they're doing it for business. My kids cry. My kids cry for the father every day. I have 2 boys, 5 and 6. The supervisor of my children asked how big my penis was. Said he wanted to take care of me. Said he wanted me out, and asked to come over to my house where my mother resides. I'm in dire need for getting my kids. The lady who made up the report and threatened my kids that they'll be taken from their parents even before it happened had quit after 1 month of taking my children and apologized over and over to me for taking my kids. My kids are not the same. I cannot sleep. I cry almost every day. Can someone please help me? It's definitely a business because they do not want to give them back. There's a pandemic, so it's prolonged for about a year, and some changes, these people do not care. It's sad. There's hundreds of cases where they're making money. They're doing child trafficking. That's illegal. They're doing child trafficking. Now, people ask me, what is an ombudsperson or what is a CASA? A CASA is a court-appointed service associate that supposedly bonds with the child. Ombudsperson is supposed to be a neutral party who helps resolve complaints or answer questions about CPS. But both of them are not trusted. They give information to social workers. You cannot trust them. They're not safe, and you don't want to trust them on that there. Also, I want to tell you, please be informed that your civil rights and your constitutional rights will be violated. There seems to be no protection in CPS. You know, when you have a criminal matter, your civil rights and constitutions are protected, are protected. But sadly to say, you'll find that the constitutional and civil rights don't apply. The child welfare system rarely offers the same rights as the criminal justice system, leaving many families facing permanent separation without due process protection. See, no due process, you know. Every year, the Child Protection Service Agency across the nation investigates family lives of roughly 3.5 million children. 3.5, or about 1 of every 20 American kids. And they are frankly accusing parents of wrongdoing. They enter homes to conduct searches and interrogations, and what they find can be used against the parent by a state attorney in the court. And the accused will face punishment, including often having their children removed from them indefinitely. I'm sorry to tell you that because it is really sad. It is so sad that they do those kinds of things. Now, there's one thing I'd like you all to look at, and that is the health, the Welfare and Institution Code, Section 300B. And that deals with abuse and failure of parents and so forth. And you need to read that. There's 3 elements for jurisdiction. One is neglectful conduct by the parent in one of the specified forms, causality, and serious physical harm or illness to the child or substantial risk of harm or illness. The third element requires a showing that at the time of the jurisdiction hearing, which you're going to have, not before the hearing, there's a jurisdictional hearing and a hearing, requires showing at the time of the hearing that the child is at substantial risk at serious physical harm in the future. So I want you to look at that one there too. That's really important there. Now, usually when your child is taken from you, you have a safety plan meeting. And what the purpose of the meeting is to meet with the social workers to determine the placement of your children. And typically they're supposed to be placed with a family member. So that way, where you're going through your allegations and taking whatever parenting class where you do, the children will be there and you can still see your children. Now, I have one thing that all the Native American Indians should be aware of. It's called the Indian Child Welfare Act. And what that tells you, basically, it was passed in the 70s, that said CPS must make an effort to determine if the children are Native American Indians. They're the first immigrants in our country, the Native American Indians. So they're going to determine if they are registered of a federal recognized tribe or could be registered. And if they are registered or could be registered, CPS is supposed to give the children over to the tribe, and the tribe will place them in other Indian families to assimilate more back into family reunification. It's a little bit better than dealing with CPS workers making gobs of money off them. They're not going to make money off them. And their tribes usually want to help out each other. They're more family orientated. So I want to tell you about the Indian Child Welfare Act. It's something that may aid you. Now, if you go to each state has legislative information, and you want to go for the Welfare and Institution Code, WCI. And in there, you want to look at dependent children, modification of juvenile court judgments and orders. Again, you have to do a lot of research in yourself there. Now, a lot of you want to know, what do you do when they come to your home? Well, you don't talk to them. You tell them your attorney will get back to them, and you don't let them in your home. That's what you want to do. Okay, my time is up. Again, I want to thank everybody for listening. I'll be on again tomorrow at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Keep fighting for your children. Thank you for Ariel Thomas for texting. I never heard what city or state. You never did the phone call, but please come back again tomorrow. God bless you. And this is Bob Pace signing off.